Editors. But is it what started this idea for this panel was Rich Coad saying,
you need a microphone, dear.
This was a discussion with Rich Coad. What are we going to do for programming? And Rich says, well, you know, I turned down an article by Bill Gibson. I'm like, that's a good starting point. Let's go.
Exactly. So welcome to another fine pickle. You've gotten us into Ollie, gotten us in Ollie. And yes, I'm the emergency Virzi, also known as Sullivan. Idea down at the end, and because Rich had it, let's come on down and introduce yourself briefly.
Okay, I'm fanzine space junk, and then in the early 21st century did Sense of Wonder stories. I've done some other smaller things in between, but those two are the main ones that I worked on, and I've never gotten into double digits publicly, unlike some people like Geri over there.
Nick, you're up.
If you don't know me by now, count yourselves fucking lucky. Nick Varry has now been realised in retroactive history. My first fanzine was actually a scandal sheet that I did at Car Saunders Hall of Residence of the LSE in 1977. I wish I still had copies of it. Shamelessly stolen all our private eye. My first actual fanzine was a fanzine called Arrows of Desire, which ran from 1980 something to 1990 something probably. And like that didn't reach double figures either, Rich. I had a history for that. Yes, my current fanzines have got into double figures. This year, which is now on its third run as a monthly perzine with additional contributors, and Beam, which everybody has forgotten about already because it's been well over a year since the last issue. Honestly, Beam 19 real soon now. It is actually almost put together. And there's another upcoming project. Yeah, I'm looking at you.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, and well, you'll find out.
Nice.
So yes, actually, to summarise, I've been doing fanzines for almost 40 years.
William Breiding, and I did a fanzine in the 70s called Starfire, ran for 9 issues, and then in the late 90s did a 10th issue. And then I did portable storage for a few years. It was one of the breakthrough zines for print on demand. Michael Dobson actually gave me the idea, and then I took it a step further. And then Michael's taken it way further since then. Portable storage ran for 9 issues.
You have one in front of you.
Rob Jackson, my fan publishing history started, I'm afraid, a bit over 50 years ago when I took over the editor of what was then the Gannett Group fanzine Mayor with issue 7, and that ran till issue 15. It finished up getting a couple of Hugo nominations in the late 70s, but then I did other more serious things like get married and moved down to the south of England from Newcastle, and published just one issue of a smaller fanzine called Inca, which then took a 28-year holiday and restarted in the mid-2000s when I got my Fanish mojo back and started coming to Corflute. Inca has chunted steadily on as a large traditional fat genzine between issue 2 in 2007 and issue 27 earlier this year, about one issue every 6 to 9 months, usually about 40, 50 pages. So that's me. It's also not yet printed on demand. It's actually printed on a home printer. I think I'm possibly the only fan left around who still collates and staples their own large genzine at home.
Mic drop.
So
Nice falling off the chair.
my first fanzine, well, my first ish was when I was 16 and I was at summer camp and I was asked to do the newsletter. And it was called the Camp Easton Aurora, and I had to type it into Ditto Stencil. And so that was my first experience with it at all. I then did zines whose titles I can't recall for a couple of APAs, and then started doing, did a zine called Take Your Fanac Everywhere. Then there was Spent Brass, Apparatchik, Chunga, Flag, Captain Flashback, Mysterious Residue,
I've never seen the series.
Stomp Box, The Lash of Bernie Ash.
Do we believe
Lagash Ain't Nothing But Trash.
No, we don't believe these titles.
So, you know, that's, again, we didn't, this is a point that didn't come up on the APA panel this morning, but one of the things APAs are for is to give you a place to use all your terrible ideas for titles. You know, a proper fanzine has a short, punchy title, hopefully of no more than 4 letters, a single word, like void. And, right, see, flag, I hit it once. So, but I have all these other ideas, like the ones that I was saying, and then there were convention dailies. So in the end, no one knows.
Idea. I just popped a scene named Idea. I will do a quick plug and say that the 1977 edition of Performance of Midwest Side Story at MiniCon 12 is up on the Fanac YouTube channel as of this past Wednesday. And we had a couple hundred views already by, I think, this morning. And the reason Idea is volume 2 is because the original idea Denny Lean did for the play, it was a crudzine to end all crudzines. And so when I started Idea, the name was from the Minneapolis Performance of Midwest Side Story. And I was always volume 2. Okay, so our description, as we've been said, right here, we get to, let's start with including, you know, everything about publishing history, including how to salvage the situation when things go awry. So do we have any stories from any panelists of a production going off the rails a little bit, or other kind of, gee, I didn't know I was signing on for this, and how did you get out of it?
I can recall an early Spicy Rat Tales, or 2, I believe it was, maybe 3, where I didn't realize that I was going beyond the margins. And so the last couple of letters of every single line were cut off. And how did I deal with that? I just didn't. I sent it out that way anyway.
You tell everybody you did it on purpose, and you give them a crossword clue sheet or whatever where they have to fill in what the missing letters were.
This was in the days of rat fandom when, you know, true rat was considered high production values.
There you go. Any others?
There was an issue of Starfire where I was working on a hand crank Speedo print, and Greg Stafford of Chaosium offered to let me use his Gestetner for supposedly to make everything easier. I didn't know hand cranking whatsoever. And during the run, I had a piece of fiction by Ben Indick, and the stencils just completely disintegrated for the whole story. So Greg and I were like, what the fuck are we going to do? And I said, we're just going to leave it blank. We're just going to excise it from the contents page. So that's what we did. It was a total fiasco, and I had to write Ben a very long apology because I'd actually gotten it illustrated, and et cetera, et cetera. I know the whole thing. And it's just like, but you know, you just deal with it. We just had another beer. I mean,
You know, good answer.
I've kind of got nothing on that, so like I must be better than I thought I was. The one thing that just came to mind about the cock up was Rich actually reminded me of this with missing lines was Las Vegas call flu 41, and we ended up having to essentially change printers at the last minute because there was a very convenient printer really close to the Con Hotel who turned out to be a bunch of dicks. So we actually changed to my regular printer, which is in another part of town, and one I use for Beam. And the Fantology that we did for that was a bunch of reprint stuff, like Fabulous, the history of Las Vegas Court Blues. And I drove down to them with Sandra. I think it was on the Thursday, the day before the Court Flu started, to pick up all the copies of everything. And when we got it, I just had a quick flick through. And I'm looking at Fabulous, you know, with this beautiful table of contents and going through, where are the fucking page numbers? There are actually no page numbers in that. And so I was like, what are you going to do? Oh, well, count.
That's something that people complained about my fanzines was that there were no page numbers. Yeah, I thought they should be on the count.
You know, Robert Lickman was very serious about not having page numbers too, and he told me to fuck off basically when I mentioned it.
I would be so bold as to suggest that anybody I've sent my fanzine to owns an ink pen or a pencil and has the ability to count to the number, however many number of pages, and they can number the damn pages themselves.
Robert Lickman would also say things like,
That's crazy.
Yes, and there was no number. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
There'd be quite a lot of fanzines. Mind you, I did make a mistake like that, not to do with a fanzine, but I was also on the staff of the last year's EasterCon Reconnect, where I had some excellent help from a layout guy called Mark Richards. But the trouble was that we had different ideas as to where the page numbers should go. I thought that the outside front cover was page 1, but he thought the inside front cover was page 1. So it's two different ways of numbering.
I'm sorry, page 1 can either be the cover or it can be the first page, like where you normally put the contents. It cannot be the inside front cover. It's an even number.
No, I'm sorry, I misphrased it, Jerry. It was as you say, the first field page.
Okay.
It's still a right-hand page.
Yes, okay. I have seen it with that being page 1. It's just wrong.
All right, so there are physical issues, like when we were trying to do a one-shot at a little convention in Racine or Kenosha, and I don't remember the name of the con at all, but I remember the one-shot was called Field of Fanac.
was that congenial?
That's right, congenial. That's
Congealed.
right. Congealed is what we called it. Because I ended up standing, it was like 26 degrees outside, and I was standing out there trying to run the electro stenciler because they couldn't have it inside. We'd all be gassed by the ozone. So I spent I was a guest of honor. I spent most of the weekend standing on this freezing porch trying to get this electro stencil to work, and it worked about 2 times in 5, and you didn't know until you had cut the whole sheet whether it had worked or not. So basically, it took like 8 hours to cut 12 pages.
It's much worse than 26 Fahrenheit than it is at 26 centigrade.
Yes, exactly. 26 centigrade you'd be in shirt sleeves, wouldn't you?
Yes.
Yeah. But then there are social issues. And I have collaborated on many of the fanzines that I've produced. And so, you know, I could just say Victor Gonzalez has been a challenge in many of the things that I did. Vic, you know, in the end, Apparatchik ended because Victor demanded that I expel Carl Juarez, who was doing the layout of the fanzine, and Victor was not prepared to take over for him. And so I was not sure what we would be doing going forward, but I had come to rely on Carl as my pal, and I just didn't want to go on. So I pretended I was tired, and we quit. So that's an example of it actually killing the fanzine. But I can also, later on then, I went on, Carl and I stayed together, and we started to co-edit with Randy Byers a couple of years later, and we did the Genzine Chunga for about 18 years. And the closest we ever came to falling out and actually ending the zine was the time when we had a whole bunch of photographs in the issue that I think had been taken at Corfu. And there was at least one person who I shall not name who prefers not to appear on the internet.
Okay.
Certainly not with their name attached to their image. And we were sensitive to that, and we were debating about how to deal with it. And I had said, just put 5 asterisks.
Okay.
And it will be clear to everyone who should know and opaque to all those who do not. And I had gotten Randy to come around to this idea, and Carl had sort of said, "Move, and as he does, and so he went off and was to lay out the fanzine and send it to the printer. And when we got it back, all of the photo captions had been removed from the fanzine. He'd taken them all out in order to make sure that no one was attached. I wish he was here, because it was somehow a very important principle to him, and it led to him doing this. And so what I did in response is I typed up a guide to the photos, a single sheet guide, made 150 copies, folded them up, stuck them inside copies of Chunga one by one, and sent them out. So those of you who were on the mailing list, you probably remember this issue with the apparent incompetence of losing the photo captions, but I assure you it was entirely intentional.
I had to deal with this issue. I dealt with it in a different way. I put a pink blob on the face of the person concerned.
So Nick and William, do you have something to share with the rest of the audience?
Totally personal. Private first, yeah. It's still in the oven.
I was actually, I was actually wondering whether Andy was going to, disguise with the discreet cop, as I normally do when the name comes.
He won't appear.
As you do, and I've had my other run-ins with that particular person. Yeah. Oh God, I hope not. Okay, no. And
I have collaborated with Andy. When Rich Brown approached me at the 1990 Corfu in New York, and basically went, okay, Lee Hoffman, Science Fiction 5 Yearly, needs new guest editor for 91. And I went back, and Jeff Shawelson and I were together then. And I basically Rich on this, and Jeff kind of went, I want in on that too. So Jeff and I edited the first one. And normally the whole guest editor just moved on to somebody else. So it was a one and done kind of thing. And Lee then basically said she was happy with what I had done and basically asked if I wanted to just keep on doing it, where she expressed that she wanted it, whether or not she was alive, she wanted it to come out in 2001 because Arthur C. Clarke, Sir Arthur, had been a contributor in the past. He hadn't contributed in a long time at that point, but she wanted the 2001, which would be the 50th year from the 1951 when she did the first. And so I kept on with it for 2000 and, okay, it's like 1991, 1996. And Jeff and I asked Andy to join us as guest editor publishers. And that worked really well in that just having somebody else bring in new material. And I don't remember there really being any problems at all with that collaboration. I don't collaborate. I think Science Fiction 5 Yearly is really the only fanzine I've collaborated with anybody on. But I just thought that went really brilliantly and really smooth. Pardon?
Confusion. 60 minutes of confusion.
Okay, we did a 60-minute, that was a one-shot. Yeah, and that was, at the convention, and it was supposed to be a fanzine produced in 60 minutes. Well, we had the 60-minute thing, and I then spent the next 14 hours doing the layout because I'm very slow with laying. But it was out at the convention, so great.
Yeah, I keep, it's more fanzines I've edited keep popping up as you talk to me, and one shots, convention one shots, the great 1876 Leech Lake, Minnesota Bozo massacre.
I had forgotten about that, but yes.
Yes. So again, one shots are also a great way to use titles that are not fit for being reproduced multiple times.
Yes, Nick.
Not fit for human consumption. I would just like to point out that the two appers that I've been in, while you're talking about fancy titles, it's absolutely not what I was going to say even. But I was actually in FAPA for like 10 minutes at one point, and my FAPA fanzine was titled Sing Sing.
Okay.
There's a story behind that, which I won't bore you with. And most people don't know, and quite rightly because they shouldn't, is that a year or so ago, we actually revived APA V, which was the Vegas APA. Mm-hmm. And so we got like 10 people in it. It's mostly with our local writers group of people. And my fanzine title for APA V is actually a title that I've used previously, I think, for my live journal, which is, in fact, one that I'm proud of. And it is Faster Than Spinach.
Faster than spinach?
Faster than spinach.
Nice.
Oh, no, I thought so too. Thank you. But what I did actually want to bog on about it was the collaborative process. The collaborative process is something that I really enjoy and tends to work mostly well for me. Now, the first, obviously, not counting the Persian, but with, other stuff. With Beam, I started out doing that on my own. And after like 3 or 4 issues, it's the single number of issues thing that Rich was talking about and has also plagued me. And it's kind of like I run out of steam. Mm-hmm. And now I haven't got so much juice going on in the creative side, the writing side, but I'm still enjoying the kind of mechanical side of it, the layouts, putting the stuff together and all of that. So it's like, well, I need to get a collaborator in. So I need somebody to help with the writing side, help with the commissioning of articles, because Beam is pretty much, certainly well over 90% everything in there has been commissioned from somebody. Very, very rarely is there something in there that was just sent in on spec and we thought, oh, all right. It was something we asked for or, requested, whatever. So me having worked on his TAF campaign at the time and him then coming over, I got Jim Mowat, aka Jim Trash, in as co-editor for Beam. And that's really, so far, the only one that didn't work out because I had to fucking sack it. Because it got to the point that after the first 2 issues that he co-edited, he didn't do shit. And it's like, you understand what the co-part means in this co-editor word that you've got. It means that you're supposed to do stuff. And he really wasn't doing anything. I would get a last-minute editorial, that's about it. But now, I could draw similar parallels to working with Ulrika. But no, the fact is that she's actually just slow. And I certainly will say for upcoming issue 19, in her defense, the rest of the issue is waiting on me. It's not waiting on her at this point.
And I'm sitting here realizing, just a minute, Pat and I are collaborating on the Spirit of Corflute.
Yeah.
And she wrote the design, she's doing all of the layout, and I'm kind of going, okay, am I pulling my weight with this? Rich, it looked like you had something that you wanted to add there.
I was just thinking with Nick saying that he was kind of tired of the writing part, but not of the production part. It doesn't make sense to me because Beam, through its successive co-editors, has remained a fanzine that is, has a distinct personality that is Nick's personality.
Exactly.
Well, kind of that's part of a side function of the commissioning thing. And when you're asking people for stuff, and as you very kindly say, thank you, for a particular fanzine with a known particular character to it, people are going to tailor to you. They're going to write that way for you. But although, that having been said, I can nitpick that to death, point into this particular article, that particular article, and say, well, look, this doesn't mention whiskey at all. Although, strangely enough,
It may be sweary, though.
actually, no, Beam is not that sweary. I am deliberately not sweary in Beam. Because most of the stuff I'm personally writing for Beam, tends more towards like a Circon. And sometimes it's Spanish, sometimes it's humour, but I had like 2 successive issues where I had essays on Earl Stanley Gardner and Perry Mason. Mm-hmm. The last one, I had an essay on a comparison that I made with short stories of Van Vogt, particular short story, The Monster, and a Brian Aldiss short story, Our Kind of Knowledge. And I went into that. And there's no fucks or arseholes in either of those. Well, other than the fucking arsehole that wrote it. But
there you go.
As you say that. But no, typically, with this here, which is the Perzine, yeah, you're getting that unfiltered. But with Beam, I draw that back.
I'm going to jump back a little bit to titles because I had a couple things I wanted to say. One, the very first fanzine, it wasn't an apozine that I produced. I went home from the Seattle Corflute, which was my 3rd Corflute, and in 1988, and I produced Dare to Be Stupid, which was a special topic fanzine. Minicon kept selecting, our selection process for guest of honor was the committee voted, but we had a whole slate. You didn't know who the pro was when you were selecting who the other guests were or whatever. It was just all the categories and everybody voted. And we kept year after year selecting 2 or even 3 locals of our 5 guests. And so then we'd see the results and go, oh God, that's too many locals. And then we do it again the next year and the next year. And a year that we selected 3, I basically want this and we keep doing this. And so I got people to all write about the guest of honor selection process. Now, did I piss off the 3 guests of honor, the 3 locals that we had selected for that year? Oh, you bet I did. Because they weren't my closest friends or anything, but man, they were pissed.
So I actually have a question that I wanted to ask Rob.
Okay, I'm going to stop you for a minute because I'm going to say the other little piece of the title thing, and then we're going to move on to your question with Rob. And that is, yes, the short, punchy idea, the and the low number thing. I was going to change the title of Idea after 3 issues, so it would never be eligible for a Hugo, because I didn't really like Hugo Lust. And then Magicon came out with the most gorgeous Hugo I had ever seen. And it had the gold rocket, and it had the piece of gantry, and it had this lovely airbrush starfield behind with this lovely curve to it. And I didn't change the title, I didn't change the name of Idea. However, I always kind of went, after Idea, the fanzine I want to publish is Clue. And it would be intermittent when fandom really, really needed one. And it would be kind of a dish the dirt, speak frankly. And I think it's probably a good thing that I have never published Clue. So, on to your question for Rob.
Right. I think so speaking for Nick and William and myself, we're wondering, do you not have a Daft Wee hat that you could wear on the panel? Because we could find one for you.
I just stop upstairs in my bag.
Now, I would have brought that down. You look out of place.
Sure.
I'm sure that Rich doesn't have a Daft Wee hat either, but his shirt makes up for it. So.
The thing about 7 minutes ago says, get it. Where do you really want?
No, we don't want to wait for you, Rob. It's okay. We'll, those of you at home, just shield yourself from the glare. Yeah.
Do we want to move? Okay, Rich, you've got something to say, and then I'll take us on to something else.
I just want to object to this idea that the best titles are all single word, 4 letters. Space Junk is a fucking good title.
Agreed. It's still punchy, and you don't mind typing it repeatedly. There's no need to abbreviate it as, say, APAC in the case of apparatchik.
What do we think about fanzine titles that are impossible to spell? Do they get more letters of comment, fewer letters of comment? Do people not want to say the names because they can't spell them?
What particularly are you thinking of?
And why do we even give a shit?
Would people actually mention the fanzine title in a letter of comment? You're commenting on the content.
Why do we care about other people's locks? We care about the locks that we get. Bollocks to everybody else. Look, you've got this super voted for, nominated every year, Hugo winning fanzine, Journey Planet, never published a single fucking lock in its entire existence.
Actually, no, they've got an issue out that has some locks that came out last year. One.
Excuse me, but I'll fall off my chair.
One lock?
One issue that had locks.
One page or
Lloyd Penny?
Yeah, that's what I was going to say. Well, that has to be Lloyd Penny.
Which co-editors did he have that time?
Well, I'm sorry. I didn't know I was going to be stepping in as moderator and didn't do my research on that. I would like to take us over to fan art. And my specific story is that Ross Chamberlain did a Where's Waldo cover for Science Fiction 5-yearly, and it might have been 96. And he did it, stencil art. We were doing mimeography. And it was 2 color. It was black and it was red. And we had our feed wasn't really good. And man, that black and red floated all over the place. But it was like, okay. And then he did a cover for Idea. And he gave me 4 fucking color separations for this cover. Now, I made the mistake of printing it on yellow, so you can't really tell it's blue ink as well as black, as well as red, as well as green, maybe. And so you can't. There's both blue and black, and it's hard to tell. But I was like, Ross, you saw how bad it was on Science Fiction 5-yearly. What are you doing to me? And actually, that one came out better. But I am so blessed with fan art. And is Jean Gamal in the room because this is the bad fan ed where she did the cover for Idea 15, and it features all of the contributors. And she gets right on top of it. And she does it. And I'm slow and want to publish every 9 months or so, or 2 issues. I'd like 2 issues a year. And I've now that's just not happening. I'm a 1 issue a year person at this point. But Jean's cover, she does it. And then I forget to tell her I've added a couple more contributors. And then I finally tell her and she does it right away. And even in the cover, I early on in the contents, I told her that the article I wrote that ended up in Journey Planet in the museums issue, I was going to run an idea and tell Steve, and I had a lot of content. I could drop my article and I could give it to Journey Planet and Steve Silver for the favorite museums. That fit really well. But there's a picture of the Corning Museum of Art on the cover of Idea 15. And my comment at the time was, this is fanzines in communication with each other, because nobody's going to send a letter of comment to Journey Planet, and people can comment on the art idea. But I kept, it's like she redid that cover like 4 times or so. And it's like I was a shitty fan editor to her in that regard. And then she turned around and gave me an article for the issue that was going to be out last fall and isn't out yet. But I have such good, patient, tolerant contributors, and I don't mean to put them through waiting for me. So tell me about art, or tell me about your contributors.
This is more of something I've just been wondering about. Is what is the production method for doing these multicolor Vimeo things? You get everything stenciled like they're layers, and have to clean the entire machine before re-inking. And
yeah, or you have a couple of mimeographs. So one's the black machine, and the other you run the color through.
But some of them do like 4 colors and stuff. It's amazing. And
yeah.
I'm just thinking the amount of work that went into doing these things is astonishing.
Yes, it is. That's, and I mean, Ross, we had an electrostenciler, but no, this was Ross doing the art directly on stencil and giving us the 4 different stencils. He didn't specify what the colors were. They just were different colors. But then you need alignment. You need the colors. And he had, so one of us, the artwork was Jeff and me in winter coats and running off the issue. And it was Ross and Joy Lynn by a poolside in lovely Florida weather kind of thing. And
you probably have the slip sheet too.
Yeah, but Don Fitch shows up and he's really good at slip sheet. And we actually have Linda Bushhager's or Leah Smith. We had a slip sheeter. So we could do that. And that's why you publish on fuzzy paper, because it absorbs the ink really well. But on that, it's like there was the winter coat, and then there was this cross hatching that in the winter coat fluid that was a different color. So the lines needed to line up exactly. And how he even did the artwork to do that on stencil was astonishing. But yeah.
Now I'm just wondering, William over here told me about a place to get electrostenciling done in San Francisco early on. There was an anarchist collective in the Haight called the 409 House. They could take the stuff there and they would run off the electrostencils and charge like 75 cents a page or something like that. But he never told me how you could get a slip sheeter. How did you get a slip sheeter?
Sit up straight and try and look interested.
I never used a slip sheet.
She had hirelings to come and slip sheet for her.
And just like, okay, people who have ever worked in restaurants can be around you in the kitchen and they're never, ever in the way. So if you've got really tight spaces, people who have the restaurant dance, Don Fitch had the mimeography. He was never in the way. He was just always helpful and just very nimble and always anticipated where I was going to be moving. And so the slip sheeter is all these pieces of cardboard that drop down one after another but you have like 50 cards, and if you're running off 300 copies, you have to keep refilling the machine and unslip sheet them after they've dried. And he was doing all of that. It was great.
Fandom will never bow to the tyranny of hirelings and slip sheeters. Another couple other fanzines I've published were Fanthology 1989 and Fanthology 1991. And 1989 had my greatest art fail to date, because Dan Steffen did us a beautiful cover which featured a whole bunch of characters created by other fan artists. Whoa. And he imitated them perfectly. And it was a really nice cover, and I took it to a pro, and they duplicated it really dark. Ooh. And half of the character of the various caricatures was lost. And so I've always said to him, you know, when we run through this printing, I'll do it again and we'll do it better. But I've still got 30 left. and you've all got one by now, I'm pretty sure. So I don't think that one's ever going to work out for me. You know, some artists are very patient and just don't concern themselves with it. Steve Stiles never, he never bothered me, no matter how many years I sat on a cartoon of his. The only exception was fairly late on in his life. He had one of, he did a cartoon of Donald Trump holding a pennant over his shoulder with the word "me" on it. And he said, "Oh, be sure and do this before Trump is in jail." But there's also other artists are really intense about turning their stuff around. Brad Foster keeps a very meticulous record of everyone that he has given a cartoon to. And, every now and then I would get an email saying, well, you're still holding on to a piece that I wrote for you, that I drew for you in July of 2007. So before I can send you anything else, you're going to have to publish that.
Any other art stories down there?
But I've had kind of similar off of Brad, which is quite interesting. As not that any of you would know this, but you might guess that as far as files on the computer, go, I'm usually notoriously fucking dreadful at keeping things in order and knowing where to find stuff. So, yes, I actually had that message from Brad. He said, well, I think you still have this cartoon, from 2007. It might have been the same one he sent Andy. I don't know. But it's quite possible. But I'm actually better with it now. And although many of you will think this is dreadful, I have little artist folders sitting on there. But as I'm using the art, what I do is, okay, I'll just put that art on a fanzine. I'll put it in the trash folder. I don't keep any of it. So what I've got is what I've got. And now, yes, there is a Brad W. Foster folder up there, and he sends a lot to this. Yeah, I see you used 2 of my cartoons in the last issue, so here are 2 more. And good stuff like that. And Teddy Harvey just sends it. He goes in spurts, which sounds naughty, but really isn't. No, you'll get kind of all of a sudden you'll get like 6 cartoons off him, 3 new chats, and then he'll kind of go quiet and do cartoons. He'll send stuff around. He'll send stuff to Bob. He'll send stuff to fucking anybody. He's such a whore. So yeah, it's not like he's doing all of that, but I've got the same thing, although he gets honored with 2 folders because I have a separate folder for chat that I do for the general Teddy cartoons. And that works out real well. But what has been good? One of the difference between the artist stuff, again, with Beam, we use block hole pillows. And typically, like everything else in Beam, those have been commissioned. And on more than one occasion, we've actually sent, here is the lockhole for the next issue, please
Yeah.
do cartoons.
Yeah.
And Brad did actually one for that. I had a bunch of stuff off Jeff Shallis, actually, for that as well. We got something a little different for the next issue coming up, but they essentially have specifically, working in, even though they don't specifically relate to the locks.
So let's actually ask the rest of everybody, how many of you commission artwork for either your lock haul or for specific articles?
I've done it occasionally.
Yeah.
I do it pretty rarely now. I only really rarely commission artwork. I'm more likely to use photos.
Yeah, you use a lot of photos.
Yeah.
William.
All I did was commission.
Yeah.
And I felt uncomfortable because a lot of fan artists are a different breed. And they can be really, especially in the 21st century, can be really freaking cranky. Especially like Terrell, and also I had some problems with Brad. But you just have to be very careful. And I tried to be that, and most everybody came through. I was really, the saddest thing for me was that Dan Stefan went into remission during most of portable storage, and I only got one incredible piece of art from him, and I wanted to use him a lot more, but he was out of it at that point, and so that was a little sad.
Ted was the one who suggested, and Dan had not done any art in years, and when I brought idea back, Ted kind of went, gee, if you might be able to get Dan, and I did, and I was really happy and proud and honored that I got it.
Yeah,
Was that the article that I reprinted in the scrapbook, where Ted went to San Francisco?
No, that's from a very older idea when.
Wouldn't it around 93, 94?
Right, but I don't have the copyright here, but that's not Dan Stuff and Art, is it?
Yes, it is.
Okay, sorry.
He said he really enjoyed getting to draw Ted in his tidy whities.
Unfortunately, cover art is something I found more of a problem since Steve Stiles was no longer around to help. I got Tarrell to do one piece of cover art for Inca 20, and it took him about 9 months, and that issue was delayed by about 6 months while waiting for that to get finished. But Tarrell was working very slowly on it. He found it difficult. He was a perfectionist, and then I don't think he did any more cover art for anybody else before he died, sadly. But I've looked back and found that I've had 6 successive issues in which the front covers have been basically photos. That's it, because 21 to 20. Well, that's
And some very good ones.
yes. But 20. Well, it's 5. 21 to 26. Inca 27. This is something completely different. This was Bill Mallardi filling in what was apparently a black and white mandala design. And he did this years and years ago when he was not very long after he must have been working with Bill Bowers on Double Bill. But he said he's found these things in some storage or other of his and sent on to Dave Langford. And Dave thought, this is too good not to get used somewhere, and asked if I wanted it. I thought, wow. So I contacted Bill and said, this is great, can I use it? Yeah, I was, yes. I'd like to do more of that sort of thing. But then the only other thing I've done from the point of view of art is having a daughter who does art. That's the back cover.
Yeah.
Which is actually an advert for her website where she sells merchandise, which is all based on her art. You just use the QR code, you'll get it.
Cool. Yes, I was gonna say I see both Rich and Nick with things ready, and
I was just going to say, back in the day when I was doing Space Truck, one of my favorite artists to get was Kent Johnson, who like to do large areas of very dark colors, especially just solid black for a lot of things. This made for interesting duplication, running things. And one time I did the Lovecraft issue of Space Junk, and Kent came out with this gorgeous cover. It was all black in the background with white drawings of Joe Strummer of the Clash being seized by tentacled hands coming out of the cosmic horror, and that was beyond my abilities. I had to actually go to a printer for that one.
And I did a similar thing back, and this is a Bill Bauer story, because Jeff Shawless had the Mimeo equipment. He would make it work and stuff, but I was actually doing all of the running. I was doing actually all of the Mimeo work of actually running off the pages. And I had an article from Bob Berlin that was actually pretty pornographic. Oh God. Embarrassment, because I'm now blanking on which artist did. I think Reed Waller did the art. But whoever did the art, it was this solid black. Mimeo just was not going to do it. And Garth Danielson worked at Donaldson Companies and had access to their photocopier. And I handed in, you put the fiber tone through the photocopy, fiber tone in a colored laser printer, fiber tone in a color inkjet printer was the cover for Skiffy Science Fiction 5 Yearly number 12. It's gorgeous. I would never have given away 700 reams of fiber tone paper when I moved if I'd known just how gorgeous. Now I've got enough, and it jams the machines and it fills the machines with paper dust and stuff. But Bill Bowers was like, oh my God, how did Jeff get this man? And on the page, it was like thanking Garth Danielson up in the credits, But it was like, he was sure it was mimeographed, and he was sure that Jeff had done it. And I basically explained, no, I do all the Mimeo, but that went through a photocopier, because there's no way Mimeo could do that.
I really, now looking back at it, I really love the art that Ray Nelson did for us for SF 5 Yearly in '96. Yeah. It was when it came, we were like, oh boy, this is real simple. Gosh, it's almost crude, But then the more we sat with it, I was like, oh, but it's soulful, man. And by the time we duplicated it in red and black, I was completely in love with it, it just seems to me that Carol used to say that you guys are going to be so sorry when we're all gone, meaning artists, meaning fan artists who would give elaborate, beautiful artwork for free, and then sit and wait 2 to 3 years.
Sue Mason waited 23 years on the cover of Idea.
Right, yeah, 2 to 3 years is optimal, right? And I published something like 40 or 50 cartoons by D. West over the whole run of Chunga, but he sent 2 cartoons back with Victor Gonzalez after the Leeds core flew, and Victor proudly handed them over to me, and I admired them, and I carefully put them inside my notebook, and then either someone stole my notebook off of the bar, or the bartender accidentally threw it in the trash. I don't know which, but alas, D never managed to forgive me before he died. So I feel like that's one of my biggest fails.
And I want to bring to our attention, we are down to the last 6 minutes of this, so I wanted to open it up to, do we have any questions, comments, other things from the audience, or especially questions for the panelists, especially questions for William, because he's been the most silent.
Hello?
Actually, he is not really here. I'm working this model with my foot.
You have a very talented foot.
You'd be surprised.
So, any
While they're thinking of questions, let me do this, and I'll do this as quickly as possible. Cover art. Like, so for Beam, what we did, like almost everything else, most of the cover art for Beam was specifically commissioned, including, of course, the Beam label cover for issue 1. Jay Kinney, an absolute wonderful job on that. And actually, this has appeared in every issue since on the title page. Issue 2 was Brad Foster, specifically commissioned. Occasionally, we've got found stuff. I found a piece of art and I was like, oh, that makes such a good Beam cover. Roy Kettle's photograph of Seville Station with the beam of sunlight coming through. Yeah. That was excellent for that. By the time it got published, he'd totally forgotten that he'd said I could use it. Just to show what a mix it is, the previous issue 18, which is an actual piece of art with no AI involved whatsoever of Jose Sanchez. That was directly commissioned, and I worked with him on the composition of that. The upcoming one, issue 19, is another one, a piece of art with no actual AI involved whatsoever. That I saw this and got in touch with the artist. This will make a great Beam cover. So that's going to be in there. So there you go. I'll shut up. Any questions? There you go.
Yes. Yeah.
Except you.
Well, I'm the moderator. You get to ask.
Oh, yeah. So I had a question about hoaxes, and if there are any memorable hoaxes that were either perpetrated on you as editors or that you participated or fomented yourselves. And just by way of example, since Taro has been mentioned a few times, he was Canadian, and as am I. We had a certain envy about Fibertone because you talk about it fondly, and that was helpful for not requiring as much slip sheeting.
Love it or hate it.
Yeah. But we didn't have access to Fibertone in Canada. It's just not available. So Taro had a series of illos that he would put in his zines and in other people's zines that would talk about Fibertone or Twiltone, I think as it was called. Yeah. And he would say, well, but what about the mercury? So he was spreading this sense of unease that if you had Twiltone, you were exposing yourself to mercury. And people would, took this seriously.
That's why everybody is addlepated in this room right now.
So anyway, I just use that as an example, but if there are other hoaxes of that sort that you want to share on this occasion, it would be fun to hear.
Ooh, let's reveal the hoaxes. Nick Forrest, he's a hoax.
Totally. I've been faking it so many fucking years, and you're all still buying it, which is brilliant. The only one that I really thought was I know Andy considered E.B. Throwbit a hoax of sorts. Did you not? I mean, you correct me if I'm wrong, by all means.
It was a pseudonym. It was just a
pseudonym. But
it's a fairly low standard of hoax.
But yeah, I always thought the hoax that I'd personally come across was Dr. Robin Bright.
Everybody's got a submission.
Yeah.
From Robin
Everybody got a submission from Dr. Robin Bright, who apparently is a real person, but did actually use a pseudonym and did all these kind of very weird essays. Where he was obsessed with the Futanari, and in fact the Virgin Mary in Futanari and stuff like that. Because in the pitch for this panel, was saying about various strange stories. What stories have you published or not published? The only fan that I know who fell for it and published Robin Bright was John Purcell.
Yeah. I can't believe that.
Because John Purcell,
he came out of Minneapolis, and we called him Plucky.
He realized that this all has to be a joke. This is the fan writing equivalent of PDQ Bark. So no, John, it's just us in Cobblers.
Yes, it's just.
But John did actually publish that. That's the one. I mean. Is Robin Bright even real? Dr. Robin Bright, who knows? But yes, I got the submission like I think everybody else in the universe
I
did.
didn't remember ever hearing this person's name before, and I'm wondering if it's during the 23 years I wasn't publishing ideas. So like
it was during
2000.
portable storage.
Okay,
because
yeah.
I got a submission for portable storage.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
I consider myself lucky. I never lost.
oh, that's good. Yeah.
We created a hoax fan in Chunga. His name was Will Tenino. Tenino is a little town almost entirely inhabited by Native Americans up in the Olympic Peninsula. And he wrote a couple of locks, and then he wrote an article about porno films. And then after that, he disappeared. So, and I don't know if we fooled anyone or not. No one ever really commented.
And it is 8:30 p.m. and I think ending on the article about porno films is the right way to end this panel. Thank you. Thank you ever so much.
Thanks for stepping in, Gary.